Let me ask you, hey, have you heard of my religion? It's called the Church of Hot Addiction.
Hey guys, this is Kai. Thanks for joining me again on Sundays with Kai. I hope you're not tired of looking at the same backdrop. Soon this backdrop will change, I hope. But today's topic, week 5, is sex toys. Now, I've made this video possibly 7 times. Why, I hear you asking. Well, because I feel that I'm doing a few things. I'm oversharing and I'm undersharing at the same time. I originally intended to just show you what I have, and then my second intention became to just talk about this for forever. But I felt that due to the things that I was talking about, I was actually avoiding the topic. So as we know, as we discussed in week 2 partners, I am single. And I have been single for, in any sense, like with a real person in the real world, at least 10 years. I was engaged when I was just turned 19, and I'm 31 now, so it's been 12 years. And I have not had a long-term partner of any kind, really ever. And the engagement was not really meaningful. It was sort of a, oh, it's sweet, it gets me out of town. Can you guys tell I love escaping? So I've never really had a long-term partner, or even a short-term partner. And I don't think sex by itself really counts, particularly because the sex I've had has been as a woman when I was miserable, and every other kind of sex I've had hasn't been the real world. So the sex toys that I have are pretty much for just self-stimulation, and they don't trigger my dysphoria, obviously. And they don't really have anything to do with anything real. I mean, sure, I use them and I have my fun and then I put them away, but I don't feel that that's what this pertains to. And so when I woke up this morning, I woke up thinking about this video because I've just made it so many times and I just don't feel happy with what I've done. So here's what I'm going to say. If we consider how I have sex, I've got 4 sex toys. The primary and most important of which is this. And this, I guess. But primarily this. It's all in my imagination. And the way by which I have sex is then done through a mouse, a keyboard, and my fingers. The sex toys themselves are really secondary to all that, because I perform the sex act online with various people using my mouse and my keyboard and my fingers and my brain, primarily my brain. And then after that's all done, then I kind of finish up, with my toys. But it's not really something that I do while I'm having sex. So this is something we can talk about. Now, let's talk about cyber sex for a minute. This might take a long time. But there are several schools of thought as to how non-physical sex can take place. It can be done with a phone, which is kind of old school if you think about it. Most people don't use the phone anymore unless they're dating, but a lot of people do it on Skype now. But let's pretend that Skype, voice calling, and over the phone are the same thing, because they're both on voice and there's no visual elements. I don't do phone sex. I did phone sex when I was 15 or 16, and it was fine as a mechanism by which to have sex. But when guys get really into it, they start mumbling. Oh, that's, oh yeah. What? What did you say? What did you say? And I would give them 3 chances. I would say, excuse me, you're mumbling. I can't hear you. Please speak up. Oh yeah, okay. Hello? I can't hear you. They would then speak up again. They would start to mumble again when things got good. And then I would hang up on them. So I gave up on them. Secondly, video sex. Skype, Google Hangout, I don't know. However, other methods you can do of video sex. I did video sex when I was 17, 18. Sort of. But I was really stupid, like... Well, anyway, let's not get into my private story. But I did it a long time ago. And I have since gotten heavier and more dysphoric about my body. So I gave that up after I got engaged. Because then I found really good typing sex. Or cyber sex, if you will. Even though they're all really kind of forms of cyber sex. Whatever. So, in this day and age, there are many different ways you can perform cyber sex. It can be done in a purely text medium, like over instant messenger. That's one way. You can go to chat rooms that are pertain to cyber sex. And there are different levels of chat rooms. Some of them involve you just type. Some of them are more complex and have a sort of roleplay element where you can create a persona and describe that persona, and you can do emotes, such as, like, instead of saying I am doing this, you can say it in third person, so it's more like a narrative. The older these programs are, hopefully the more complex people are, you know, the more they're better at it. Alright. Then there's also the new school of thought, which pertains to visual virtual environments, which there are a ton of different degrees that involve visual representations of a character and animations that animate these characters in various acts. Not all of them are sexual. Some of them are just like sitting down, and some of them are, you know, whatever. The new school of thought is to rely primarily on the animations as opposed to the typing. And I'm of the old school, where I've been doing this for a long time, so I'm really good at it. And my imagination is much more powerful than any animations that someone could contrive, because they're usually short in length and not very creative. But, so I rely mostly on my own writing and my creativity, as opposed to the creativity of others, because I always find that limiting. So, you know, these can get fairly complex, these fantasies and these interactions with people. But, you know, they do say that the brain is the biggest sex organ. So I don't focus on the nether regions until everything is well and truly over. Because, okay, so for going all this explanation about all the different kinds, because we were going to talk about this all the time, but it comes down to two things. For people with male genitalia, it is much easier to multitask when it comes to, you know, that kind of stuff. For people with female genitalia, it's a little harder to do both, because one's internal, sort of, and the other one's external. So the external one is a little bit easier to handle in this kind of situation, whereas the internal one is a little bit, it gets complicated. And it's also a politeness thing. If you're too busy, you know, playing the skin flute, if you will, you're not paying attention to what's going on. You're not making that interaction really as good as it could be. You're going to be slower at this because you're doing it one-handed. And you're going to be too pent up in what you're feeling down here to really focus on how turned on you are up here, and also on how they're doing, how they're feeling, what's going on with them. So I find it rude to focus on this area when I could be focused on, you know, using my brain and coming up with things to do and so on. So that's all really kind of secondary. And since I'm using them by myself, that's not really that important. So I kind of wanted to touch on, it's more about what's here. This is my sex toy, and this is kind of how things happen. Now, once I start chemically transitioning, hopefully very soon, and losing weight and feeling more comfortable in my body and able to really be who I see myself as inside, which is a lot skinnier than this. I'm a lot heavier than I am. It's like bulimics and anorexics see themselves as being fat. I see myself as being thin, but I'm fat on the outside. So once I start becoming more comfortable with my body and in who I am and how I'm able to express myself, maybe I'll do a second year and loop back around to this topic and then talk about what I'm doing at that time. But at this time, as a single person who enjoys myself online, this is my biggest sex toy. Because my creativity really, there's a lot of things. But anyway, that's where I'm going to leave that. I think the actual toys that I have are not as important as how I make the connection and what I do to create a good connection, which is all in my brain, and the fact that I can type 100 words a minute. This is like not even the coolest sex talk there is out there. Now, some of you have partners, so I'm not going to answer these questions for you. But if anybody else would like to know about this, I'm game. Now let's see. I think of the people on this channel, besides Zan, everybody else is a partner, right? I think so. Say maybe one person. So none of you. I'm not going to talk to any of you about this. Now, if any of you are not on this channel, I want to know. You can email me at kaithetransman@gmail.com, and I will answer any questions you have about any of this gladly. But I don't think a public YouTube channel is really the place to do it. But that's my sex talk about my sex toys. And I don't think any of your sex toys can beat my sex toys, frankly, because my sex toy is amazing. If only I could get down to the physical part, but when I do, it's going to be crazy. People are going to like... Anyway, I'm done with that. Oh, finally, relief. Okay. See you guys week 6. It's something. I don't know what it is. Talk to you guys then. Bye.